I grew up here in Toronto, and I had a lot of Muslim friends. But my experience with my Muslim friends were they're nice people. They're good. They're fine, right? And I think that's true with a lot of us here in the Western world. When I say the West, I mean Europe, I mean Canada, I mean the US, United States, more of an advanced countries, is that our experience of a Muslim will be through our interaction with our Muslim friends. And what's the common conclusion that you see people have? They're nice people. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, what's wrong with them, right? And the reason why there's somewhat of this confusion is because what you see on the news, what you hear on the news. Okay, so if I were to just look at my phone or look at my computer and see what's going on in the world, I would say, I think the United Kingdom, I think Britain is in trouble. If I were to look at France, I talk to my friends who are from there. There's a lot of French that move here to Canada and to Quebec, and all of them are very concerned. Not Christian, but they're concerned, and they're concerned because of Muslims. Do you guys know where the rape capital of the world is?
India.
India?
Near Delhi?
Sweden. Just go look it up, Sweden, and you see these Swedish blonde girls being raped by Muslims. News doesn't really report it. In 2015, there was this a newspaper, Charlie Hebdo, that did a caricature of Muhammad. And just a joke, okay? And two brothers came in and slaughtered 12 people. Shocked France, shocked Paris. Screaming, Allah Akbar, we have avenged our prophet Muhammad. Okay? In 2020, you have Samuel Paty, who is a high school history teacher, who did a caricature of Muhammad and was beheaded by one of his, and 6 teenagers were arrested because of this. You have, and compare this, remember, this is Paris, this is France, compared to what just happened in the Olympics. Okay, what happened in the Olympics? You saw there was a presentation, and all of a sudden the Eucharist, or the communion scene that was painted by Da Vinci, was mocked, and there was no apology for it. But it's as if Christianity could be mocked, but when it comes to Islam, all of a sudden there's death, there's beheadings, and this is what we see as far as what's going on in the news. In 2015, there was a Jordanian pilot who landed and all of a sudden survived, and he was publicly burned alive by ISIS in the name of Allah. Is this Islam? Or is it my friends that are so peaceful here in Toronto or in America or in Philadelphia? What's Islam? What's the true Islam? Earlier this year, there was an Orthodox priest whose name is Mari Emmanuel, and he was speaking, and he speaks fluent Arabic, and some young kid, 16-year-old, comes up to him live and stabs him, and Mari lost his eye, but the kid was screaming, Allah Akbar. Is this Islam? Is this a religion of peace? Because I talk to my friends and I see people that are very nice, very cordial, but I look at the news and it seems somewhat chaotic. It seems, and I'm not saying I'm just giving my commentary as far as what I see from the news, from what is wherever this religion of Islam goes, there's always chaos. There's a lot of incivility. Not too far from you, there is, it's Dearborn, Michigan, and that's the most Muslims in one specific area in the United States. And I think that what's common is goat carcasses in the garbage. Okay, animal sacrifices. Okay, is this civil? Is this where America is going? Is this Islam? Or are these radicals? What about 9/11? We know what happened in 9/11. Is that a representation of Islam? Narratives that you see as far as Islam, if you hear about Sharia law, for example, and under Sharia law, if you were a Muslim and you're an apostate, say my friend Ramin, guess what happens to Ramin? You know what happens under Sharia law? And you're an apostate? Execution. Public execution. Is this Islam? Do we want this in America? Is this what's now? Again, we're going to answer this question as far as what is the true Islam, because we seem to have it's a religion of peace. Only in the Middle East they're like that, or is it truly a religion of violence? Is it truly a religion of chaos? As far as what we see, okay, and that's what we're going to answer now. Let me clarify some stereotypes first of all, because stereotypes happen for a reason. Okay. The majority of people, culture and ethnicity, gender, if they do a particular thing, guess what? Stereotypes happen. But some stereotypes are true. I'll be honest. I can look at culture and be like, oh, yeah, that's true. But there's certain stereotypes that are false. Two of them being that Christianity is the white man's religion. If you know history, 2,000 years of church history, the opposite is true. It's leading the way today. In the West, we have conversations about Judaism, Orthodox, Catholicism, Protestant, all this tradition debates. What's leading the way in Christianity today in the world? As far as the spread of Christianity. If there's a spear in any religion, if there's a spear, and the tip of the spear right here, you know what the tip of the spear is right now? Pentecostalism. Spreading through Asia and all of Africa. Okay? Places, and if you know me, I'm a big history buff. I've always wondered, how come the gospel just never spread through Asia or like certain parts of the world? Well, now it is. Okay? So another stereotype. If I say Islam, if I say Muslim, let's be honest, we typically think Arab, hairy, a turban on their head. Am I right? Yeah? Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's true, right? Out of all the places in the world where the most Muslims reside is in Indonesia at 270 million people. That's how big their population is. 242 million of them are Muslim. Arabs are only 15 to 20% of Muslims, and that's where it started, in the Arabian Peninsula. There's about all of Muslims, out of the 1.7 billion Muslims today, 65% Asian, Southeast Asian, comprising particular Indonesia, India, and Pakistan, Bangladesh. Okay, way more than Iran, way more than Afghanistan. It's not even close. Okay, but again, stereotypes. This is from us. We view it them right. It's the same thing with Jews. When if an American sees a Jew, they think European, they think white, and that's because half crazy stat. There's only 14 million Jews. Half of them live in the United States, and 97% of them are Ashkenazi, European. So if someone in America sees a Jew, they think white. Versus you go to Israel. Wait, everyone's like brown, right? Right? And the stereotypes. Okay, so Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, next to Christianity. And if you talk to a Muslim, there's kind of a boastfulness to it. Like, yeah, Islam's therefore it's true. Okay, you know why Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world? Procreation. Okay, so in Islam, in certain countries, child marriage is legal. Again, Sharia law. People get married young. Women don't have a lot of rights. I'm not trying to throw them on there, but this is just true. This is what happens in other nations. In the West, say Canada, say America, say the UK, a woman would typically, we follow individualism, right? So a woman will say, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get this degree, and then after that, I'm going to go get a law degree, and after that, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to make this much money, and then I'll get married. And when Samantha is on child number 1, Fatima, who's 10 years younger, is on child number 6 or 7. So it's a matter of time where Islam becomes the number 1 religion in the world. And it's not through the communication of the message, it's really through procreation. Okay, so it's just true. Look at America, individualism. We encourage abortion. We encourage not having children. This is just an American thing. It's a Western thing. We're so focused on, I want to do this in my life. I have to have this career. I need to have this degree. I need to make this much money. Fine, but there's another religion that doesn't really think like that. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's projected, this is Pew Research, by 2050, they will be the number one religion in the world. It's a matter of time. Okay, so a form of combating that is the projection is for Generation Z to be the trad movement, meaning traditional movement, to get married young, to have as many kids as possible, and to convert them to Christianity. Okay, that's kind of like if we're playing chess, that's what it looks like. Okay, now, 2020. 2020 was big, and the reason why 2020 was big was because I saw a narrative that was anti-American. And this is me as an immigrant moving to America to establish a life. The narrative was always there, but it never got projected as far as normality, and that's what happened. Okay, and there was this movement in the name of this name called Wokeism, and Wokeism, I'm pretty sure all of us know. I've heard the term Wokeism. Wokeism is the term that it was an African American term that meant to awaken. Okay, to awaken, to be aware of. Okay, and what happened was that to be aware of what? To be aware of Western civilization, its origins, and the way it functions. And a lot of people that didn't like it. Wait, colonization, what's that? Western values, a man and a woman are together, therefore same-sex marriage is not permissible. What? The equality as far as pay due to, some claim, race. Okay, so it was let's awaken to the dangers of Western civilization. And it wasn't just in America. It was Canada, it was in the UK, it was in Europe, it was any Western nation that had happened. It was this narrative that went gangrene. You know what's normal here in Canada? You know what's a trend here in Canada? You know what's a trend? Burning churches. That's a trend here.
Yeah.
33 churches, Catholic churches, small churches in rural areas burned. 24 have been confirmed that it's arson. Who's doing this? Is when did these things start happening? Right? Post 2020. And the narrative is, if you're indigenous, if you're in Canada, oh, those French and the Catholic Church came here and colonized us. That belief has always been there, but all of a sudden, when did we start burning churches? Right? If one mosque lit on fire because of people, that would be all over CNN, all over MSNBC. Did you guys know? Did any of you guys know that churches were a thing as far as burning churches in Canada? No. And as I'm saying, it's a thing. And I would say it's due to something called wokeism. Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ. At the end of the day, all these groups team up together. What's their commonality? What's the goal? You know what the goal is? Anti-Western solidarity. We hate the West. Isn't it funny that on October 7th, as of last year, 1,400 Jews slaughtered, dead. A lot of them were liberal. But all of a sudden, there's this group that when Bibi Netanyahu responds, they're pro-Palestine, okay, in favor of the Gaza Strip. And now all of a sudden, some of these people, Black Lives Matter supported them within one day. You ever hear Queers for Palestine? Have we heard that? Queers for Palestine? So people who are part of the LGBTQ movement are in favor of Palestine. You know that Islam is against same-sex marriage, and what they do in other countries is they'll throw them off buildings. They'll behead them. It's a thing. But we're queers for Palestine, right? It's just like saying chickens for KFC or chickens for Popeye's chicken. Same thing. But why do they do that? A group, Islam, is significantly more harsh when it comes to same-sex marriage in comparison to Christianity. But we're teaming up. Why? Anti-Western solidarity. We're teaming up because we don't like the West. We don't like America. We don't like Christianity. We don't like Christian values. We want it out. Right? This is the very essence of wokeism. And what I want to argue is that I believe that wokeism is the Trojan horse to an Islamic Western civilization. In essence, the death of the Western world. Okay? So, as wokeism progresses within the West, and it has, and we've seen in the last 4 years, Islam will sneak right through because of this anti-Western solidarity. And remember, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I could see it happening. With Pew Research, as far as the projection, as far as Islam being the number one religion in the world by 2050, and if it does, it will happen through wokeism. I believe that's the pathway, that's the door through it. I think wokeism has this ability to really shut people's minds off, shut people's levels of discernment off, to where things that we've seen in the last 5 years are permissible. Are you kidding me? If you went back 20 years ago and you said, could a man get pregnant? And that's a plausible outcome. People would laugh at you. People would laugh at you, but all of a sudden it's now questionable. People are defending it. We have the President of the United States defending it. On Easter this year, it was trans invisibility the same day, right? And I'm just saying, this is the society that we live in. Coming this November, you have Kamala Harris, who is arguably the most progressive politician that has potential to be the President of the United States. Put two and two together. Put two and two together. Wokeism being the pathway, being the door to an Islamic West. Okay? And it's slowly happening. Okay? When we say wokeism, when we say secular humanism, we're not arguing for anything. Okay? We're not arguing for anything. If I say, for example, I believe in this world, the globe is either shaped by Christianity or Islam. One of the two. The reason you can put Judaism there, but Judaism it's not a proselytizing religion. They don't go out in the streets and preach, right? They live life, they live within their culture, but they don't preach. Christianity, that's what Christianity does. Islam, the exact same thing. And I believe any other worldview other than those two assists one of the two. So secular humanism. What do you say? What do you say? Say someone like Richard Dawkins. Secular. What are you trying to argue? Well, if America became secularized, where's the foundation as far as ethics goes? You're left to you. You're left to me. I think stealing is okay in a certain context. Well, I don't think stealing is okay at all. Who gets to say? Who's the judge? Right? And this is at the end of the day, secular humanism, wokeism is an empty vacuum. It assists one of the two. You see? So secularism, at the essence of it, will destroy Christianity as far as shutting Christianity down, but allowing Islam in. People need something to believe in. Think of it logically. You need something to believe in. What wokeism done is it made people not believe, but it never gave people a belief. So now people are searching. Since 2020, it's called the deconstruction movement. A lot of Christians are like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I'm deconstructing. Big at Fuller Seminary. And what people are saying is, I believe in Christianity, but I don't believe in all of it. And now you're left to discover it for yourself. This is what happened after 2020. It left an empty vacuum, and now the West needs to choose. What are we going to believe in? And the two options, Christianity, are we going to maintain a Christian civilization, or Islamic? One of the two. Okay, this is what wokeism, this is what has presented us with. Okay, you see Richard Dawkins, he was on an interview with earlier this year, and he declared that he is a cultural Christian. And what he meant was he likes being a civilization where it's predominantly Christian because society is good. And he says, I like the hymns, I like the Christmas carols, and I like the church, right? I like the little cute Catholic churches or little Presbyterian churches. But the problem is this, to Richard Dawkins, is if everyone becomes a secular humanist or Muslim, guess what? No one's going to sing those hymns. No one's going to be in those churches. You need people to be in churches in order for those churches to function. You need people holding Christmas carols, singing them, right? If you remove the religion, if you remove the ideology, you have no people, and you're left to one of the two of them. And this is the world that we live in right now. Okay? The more wokeism goes into the minds, and I think Elon Musk called it a mental disease as far as his children went, right? The more that is, the more they will be more receptive to Islam. The reason why, because there's one common enemy that they have, Western civilization. And again, where's the West going to go in the next couple of years? Okay? History, will it repeat itself? And I go into this whole Islam, Christianity thing. Will history repeat itself? Really quickly, if you look at the Roman Empire, by far they're one of the greatest empires we've ever seen. And the reason why, because of the longevity. If you know the history of it, it existed for roughly 2,000 years. That's how long it existed. Okay? Now, scholars, historians ask, when did Rome fall? How did it fall? Right? The traditional answer is this: 476. That's a traditional answer. In 476, Rome fell. And it fell due to the Germanic tribe. The Goths came in, and the reason why the Goths came in is because the Huns, who were very before the Mongols, invaded the Germanic tribes, and people from the Germanic tribes, they were the Visigoths, they came near to the border, and what happened was that they needed help. And Theodosius was the emperor at the time, and he said, they're just sitting there, we need help, they're no harm, let them in. So he allowed the Visigoths, the Germanic tribes, to come in, and he said, they're not hurting us. And what happened is it was called mercenaries. It was where you pay someone that's not Roman to fight for you. And what happened is they eventually became Roman, but they're more dedicated to wealth, dedicated to money versus being Roman, instead of learning Latin and being part of the Republic and etc. They weren't about that. Rome lost its ultimate identity. And because it lost its ultimate identity, its ultimate culture, it started to decay. And as a result, it was first an internal suicide. They lost their culture, they lost their identity. And second, an external tribe came in and wiped them out. Okay, the Visigoths. And this is in 476. Okay. It was the Germanic tribe leader Odysseus against the last Roman emperor, who was only 16 years old, Augustus, Romulus Augustulus, okay, who was the last, and he's only 16 years old. He got carried away, and there was no more Caesar in Rome. Okay, now that's the traditional understanding, 476. But the thing is this: the reason why I say 2,000 years is because in 324, Constantine the Great, who was the emperor at the time, moved the capital of Rome from Rome to Constantinople in the east. And the reason why he did that, because there was more wealth. He personally spoke Greek. He became a Christian. He saw a vision, and he saw a cross in the sky, and he became a Christian. And he moved the capital. So because he moved the capital before 476 and 324, technically speaking, by law, Rome persisted under the Byzantine Empire. Now, to us, looking at that, we'll say Rome, that's the Byzantine Empire. But remember, to them, they were Roman. Okay? Now, they really fell in 1453 because it was the beginning of the Ottoman Empire by this young guy by the name of Mehmed II, who desired to be Alexander the Great. And if you want to sum up every general in history, they just want to be Alexander the Great. Oh, I want to be Alexander the Great. You want to do the greatest amount of work in the least amount of time, right? So you can be like, when I was 22, I accomplished, right? And that's what he wanted to do, okay? Now, technically speaking, and Muslims boast about this, Islam defeated the Roman Empire. And it's true. It is true. If we were to take into account these facts, Islam defeated the Roman Empire. But look at the way it defeated itself. It was first an internal collapse. They lost their ultimate identity, right? All of a sudden, people from the border started coming in, and instead of saying get away, they said, all right, bring them in. And they never cultured them. And all of a sudden, this tribe externally, in the name of Islam, came and completely took out Rome. Think of the United States. You have, in 2020, there's this narrative to lose your culture. American culture is bad, it's racist, etc. I think in the last 4 years, we've seen people at the border, right? Instead of discouraging them to come in, it's like, all right, fine. And third is we have now the rise of Islam. There's a correlation. Am I saying it's going to happen? Time will tell. But one thing history does do is it repeats itself. Okay? And I want to share with you guys this external possible threat called Islam. And am I trying to put fear into you? Am I trying to scare you? No. But is it a scary reality? Absolutely. No way around it. But I believe that with information, it can prepare ourselves to act, to think differently as we move forward. Okay? Now, usually when I say Islam, people typically think some guy named Muhammad, Aladdin, somewhere in the Middle East, and that's about it. Most people think that, right? Now, Islam, from a Muslim perspective, is a continuation of Christianity. This is not me. This is now from an Islamic perspective. Okay, so we have Judaism. The continuation of Judaism would be Christianity, first century figure Jesus of Nazareth. And all of a sudden, Jesus and his followers, and what happened was, this is in Jerusalem that it happened, and it spread throughout Rome. And this is why we have the East and the Western Church, because of the East and Western Rome. Now what happened was that 600 years later, after Jesus, there was this place, and historically speaking, no one really took this place seriously, and it was called Arabia, the Arabia Peninsula. If you study Alexander the Great and his conquest, it's like he skipped right over it, right? Went through Egypt and we just skipped right over it. And he did want to conquer it before he passed, and I wonder, what would life look like today? What would the world look like today if Alexander the Great conquered Arabia? But anyways, we don't know. But in this place called Arabia, there was a city called Mecca. Okay, and this is just south of Israel. And what happened was that Muhammad, this is in 570 after the death of Christ, 570 years after. Now what happened was that he is born of the Quraysh tribe. His dad died before he was born, and his mom died only 6 years after, and he was pretty much taken care of by his uncle, Abu Talib. And what happened was that he was a merchant. He was a trader. So Muhammad would go with him up and down, would go around, and Muhammad was known to be a very diplomatic, honest person by the time he was 12. Okay. Now, Muhammad, when he was 40 years old, so this is around 610, what happened was that Mecca was a very polytheistic place. And if you know the Kaaba, which is that black cube, it was known for being a place of trade. So, but people would bring different idols, different statues. So if that's the trade, guess what? Place makes money. Business is booming. Okay. Now Muhammad would see all this, and all of a sudden, when he was 40 years old, he was in the cave in Hira, and he went to pray. And as he was in this cave, this creature comes to him, and Muslims will claim this is Angel Gabriel, Jibreel, they say, and will say this angel came to Muhammad and grabbed him by the neck. And we're going to go more into it next week, because I'm going to read the passages and compare it to the angel Gabriel of the Bible. Grabbed him by the neck and said, Ikra. And Ikra is in Arabic, and it means read. And if you don't know, Muhammad was an illiterate. And he says, I don't want to read. I can't. What are you talking about? And he grabbed him by the neck again and said, Ikra. And Muhammad said, I don't know. I can't read. And he grabbed him by the neck again, and he said, read. And he says, what do you want me to read? And then this is the Quran in Surah chapter 96. He says, read, O Prophet, in the name of your Lord who created humans from a clean clot. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught humanity what they knew not. Okay? And this is an encounter that Muhammad from some being. And he went to his wife, Khadija, at the time, and his wife, Khadija, I forgot about her, background, is she was roughly 15 years older than him, and she proposed to him. He didn't propose to her. So back then, if you were a woman, you needed a husband in order for you to have financial support. She was wealthy. She doesn't need a husband, right? So at the end of the day, she proposed to him. She liked him. They got married. And they had 6 kids, 4 girls, 2 boys. 2 of the boys died, and they had 4 girls. So as he's married, he tells her all these things, and he is confiding in her, and she's the one that supposes this is the angel Gabriel. Okay? So you didn't hear from the angel, you heard from Khadija. Okay? Now, for 3 years, there was complete silence. Okay? And Muhammad became very suicidal, that he would go off to a cliff and want to jump off, because he was saying, God spoke to me, or some being spoke to me, but I haven't heard any voice since. So he became very suicidal. And what happened was that the angel appeared to him again, after the 3 years, and it's known as Muhammad's 3 years of silence. So he just kept to himself. Very similar to, I guess, Jesus in the wilderness or Paul in Damascus, just keeping to themselves. And that's when the proclamation started to begin in Mecca. And Muhammad had some followers, but had a lot of persecution at the time. So Abu Bakr was one of his first followers, and he was a very wealthy man, and he had a daughter. And then again, this is not controversial in Islam, okay? When I tell you this, your Western minds, as Muslims would say, are going to resist. But there was polygamy at the time, which was normal, and Muhammad married Abu Bakr's daughter, and he married her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated the marriage when she was 9. So he was 54 and she was 9 when there was consummation. Okay, this is not disputed. This is in the Hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, which is a trusted source, and we'll go into the source later on, but this is just what happened, okay? So, Muhammad started to preach that there is one God, Allah. And what happened was that there was a lot of resistance because, remember, Mecca was a polytheistic location, and they made money off that. So, it's called Hijrah, where Muhammad and his followers had to move up north to Medina. Okay, and this is the beginning of the Islamic calendar, Hijrah. Okay, so the beginning of the Islamic calendar is in 620. So essentially, we believe what today is 2024. The Islamic calendar is 1446. Okay, is because this is when the Islamic calendar starts. Now, as he goes up to Medina, he starts to build followers. He starts to gain followers, but I will say this, is that there's a reason why. Remember how I started, you talk to some Muslim friends, they're all peaceful, but you look on the news and there's all war and terror. There's different messages in the Quran as far as the way Muhammad is speaking to his people. So when Muhammad is speaking, there are certain times where it talks about peace, loving everyone. Okay, but this is when he was in Mecca and he didn't have a lot of followers. But all of a sudden, when he's in Medina, his followers starts to grow and his religion starts to grow. But I will say this, that Muhammad and his following spread by the sword. Okay, and there's a process as far as that happens. Okay, so I am someone that I just, for fun, I enjoy studying wars and generals and the way they fought, like Alexander the Great, the Battle of Isis, or the Battle of Gaugamela, and just the way it went. Like, we have documentation of all these things. Actually, ironically, this is Herodotus, and Herodotus is the first historian in world history, as far as what we know. Okay, so if you think, what is the furthest historian in human history? Herodotus. Okay, the Persian Wars, and he talks about King Cyrus and the Book of Daniel and all this. So it's amazing. But my point in saying that is, Muhammad led a bunch of wars. He led 8 major wars and 18 raids, and he planned 38 different military operations. Okay, this is just what happened. And from Medina, as he gains followers, he comes back to Mecca. And you'll hear from Muslims, they peacefully surrendered because of the religion of Islam. Why do you think they peacefully surrendered? Is because you went to war with everyone, and now you have an army with you that have swords and spears, etc. That's why they peacefully surrendered. Okay. Now, in 620, this is known as the night journey and ascension. Okay, Muhammad. What happened was that he experienced another vision, and this is the vision he had. There was this animal that Muhammad encountered called the Borak, which is in Arabic. And this animal was a horse with wings, and Muhammad, when he was in Mecca, he had this vision that he was on top of this horse, and the horse flew him to Jerusalem. And while he was in Jerusalem, he had a vision that he went to heaven. Okay? And this is the history behind the Dome of the Rock, if you don't know. Okay, so there's the Dome of the Rock and there's the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And the Al-Aqsa Mosque was a Byzantine church. It was an Eastern church, okay? And the Dome of the Rock was a shrine. Now look at the structure of it. It's that, it looks beautiful, but it is a copy of a Byzantine church. If you know Byzantine, it's Eastern Orthodox churches. When you go around, there's not a lot of Orthodox church in these areas, because I know your areas, California, Southern California, there's not a lot. But when you do go by an Eastern Orthodox church, just look at them. There's a dome, there's always a dome, and there's a cross right on top of that. Almost every single business, it's the way it's made. So Jerusalem is in the east. It's in the Byzantine, so that's what it's known as. So if you look at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the same thing. There's a little dome on it, and there's a cross on top. So when there was the Dome of the Rock, which was made in 691, it was almost as if Muslims in Islam were saying, Jews and Christians, we're here. And we're more superior. Just look at the way the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in comparison to the Dome of the Rock. Dome of the Rock, everyone sees it, right? The color and everything. And it's in Arabic where it says, Jesus is the Messiah, calling out the Jews, but he's not God, calling out the Christians. Okay? And the point of it was when Muhammad was in Jerusalem, he had this vision that he was in the Dome of the Rock, and he went to heaven. And in heaven, there's 7 different layers. Under the earth, there's 7 different layers. And in heaven, he had a vision as he was speaking to God, and he spoke to all the prophets, or Allah. He spoke to all the prophets. He spoke to Musa, that's Moses. He spoke to Isa, Jesus. And he had conversations with them. And I think he was in the 7th or 6th layer. But he went up to the first layer, that's Allah. Now, the Kaaba, that's that black thing that Muslims walk around. There's a reason why they walk around that 7 times, is because Abraham and Ishmael, not Isaac, Ishmael, built that, and they built it on top of Adam, who built a rock there, and they walk around that 7 times. Now, above the Kaaba is the throne of Allah. Okay, and there's 7 different layers, and Muhammad was having discussion with Allah, and Allah said, I want you and humans to pray 50 times a day. And Muhammad went back to Moses and says, yeah, Allah said I have to pray 50 times. He's like, 50? Say 5. 50 is too much. So it's a negotiation between Muhammad and Allah and Moses going back and forth, and they came to the consensus that praying 5 times a day is good enough. And this is why you see Muslims do the Salah, and they pray 5 times a day facing Mecca. Okay, so after this vision, he goes back to Mecca. Now, there are, I would say, somewhat controversial things at this point. There was the Battle of Trench that happened. This is one of the battles. There's multiple battles that happened. I can go list all 8 of them if you want. But the Battle of Trench was when he was in Medina. Again, he was me taking out my non-biased hat, he was a good general. Like, there's a reason why Islam spread, and it wasn't because of the message. It was because he was a good general. He knew how to fight. But he had less soldiers in comparison to the Medinans, and he built a trench around so they couldn't come in, and it was successful. Now, in 632, Muhammad dies. And there's dispute as far as how he died. Was he poisoned? Some believe that he was poisoned by a Jewish woman. This is the life. So Muhammad, from 610 till 632, for 30, he received angelic visitations from the angel Gabriel, and he memorized. Maybe he was an illiterate, and he memorized all of these things. And as a result, he would communicate to scribes, and they wrote it down. And this is how we come up with the Quran. Okay, so in Islam, remember, they believe in a continuation of Judaism and Christianity. That being said, they believe in the Old Testament, the Torah, the Torah. They believe in the Zakat, that is the Psalms. They believe in the Injil, and that's the Gospels. Okay, and they believe that the Quran, or as they say, the Quran, is the final book, okay? And it's a complete book. And the Quran, this one, if you can see, it's in Arabic. And they believe that's the pure language of Allah, is Arabic, okay? Now, here is the translation I read earlier. The common English translation is Abdullah Absuf Ali. A lot of people, but again, to a Muslim, it's the Arabic translation. Now, there are 114 surahs. Those are like chapters for us, and they start instead of surah 1 from 2. It's like it's not chronological. It's the longest to the shortest. So the when you're at surah 110, it's like 4 verses, 3 verses. Like it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, especially in chapter 2. Okay, and verses are called ayats. Okay, now if you were to read the Quran by yourself, and you have no commentary, you have nothing, you're just by yourself, you just walk away confused. So to all the progressives that were trending on TikTok, I don't know if you know this was a trend because of the pro-Palestinian movement, all these progressive liberals, and it was a thing for white women to wear the hijab and all. Like, I guess I'm saying it's going to be a trend. Just prepare yourself. I can assume they didn't know what they were reading. I know it. I could. They did not know. They bought it and like, oh, what? Like, so it was on TikTok. Oh, I just bought my Quran, and it's so amazing. Like, it was a trend on TikTok. And I'm saying they don't know what they're talking about is because when you read the Quran, it's as if you're reading the Book of Psalms without a commentary. The reason why you could read the Psalms and have some form of commentary is because there's always a line giving you an explanation. Psalm 51, which is David's repentance after committing adultery with Bathsheba, and that's 2 Samuel chapter 12. Without that line, you would not know what Psalm 51 was about. You wouldn't. You just, where's the context? Who's speaking? Right? There's no context. And that's what the Quran is without the hadiths. So the hadiths was written 250 years after the Quran, okay, by Sahih al-Bukhari. And it's 9 volumes, it's thick, but these are the most trusted sources of Muhammad. And then there's also the Sunnah, and the Sunnah is the deeds of Muhammad. Okay, so all those together equate to you reading the Quran perfectly. Now, does the Quran, does the New Testament, the Injil, the Gospels, and the Old Testament, do they all line up? No, they don't. They don't. The Gospels clearly contradict the Quran. Okay, now, how do we make sense of all this? Well, Muslims believe in the Old Testament. Muslims believe in the New Testament. But they believe that the New Testament and the Old Testament have been corrupted by a guy by the name of the Apostle Paul. Right? They believe that. So let's just take the Gospels, for example. If I say the Gospels are a documentary or biography of Jesus from different accounts. Okay? You have Mark writing, you have Luke writing, you have John writing, you have Matthew writing, different people, different contexts. Now, the reason why the common argument is Mark was written first, Matthew, Luke, and then John. John was 90 AD, Mark around 65. Okay, now really early. That's really early. But what they'll say is Mark, Shabir Ali, he's a scholar here in Toronto. He'll say if you read Mark did not emphasize the Christology, the divinity of Jesus. And then when it became Matthew, it slowly progressed. When it became Luke, it became progressive. When it was Matthew, in the beginning was the Word was with God. It was corrupted by then. So the longer we waited, all of a sudden, the more corrupted it became. And then this guy by the name of the Apostle Paul destroyed it. That's what the Muslims will say. So they believe in the Injil, they believe in the Gospels, but they believe it's been corrupt. So it's, how do you know what's been corrupted and what's not, is whatever's consistent with the Quran. So any verse that's consistent with the Quran has not been corrupted. Any verses that have been altered or like that's contradictory, that's been altered in history. That's their claim. And so next week, not today, we're going to go into these verses in detail. So John 17:2-3, very famous passage where Jesus prays to God and says, to the only true God. And see, Muslims will say, see, there. I'll explain that, okay? So there's verses as if it appears that Jesus is trying to deny his own divinity. But again, next week we'll go into detail. But this is the way Muslims think as far as the Quran and the Hadiths. Okay? Now, as far as belief systems go, Muslims believe in the 5 pillars of Islam. Okay? The 5 pillars of Islam. And that is, number 1, the Shahada. Okay? The Shahada is the declaration of faith. So it's where a Muslim comes to the conclusion and says, I want to be a Muslim. I want to believe in this prophet. You have to. You're at a mosque and you're with an imam, and they give you a microphone, and you say the shahada in Arabic, not in English, and there has to be at least 2 witnesses. And what you say is La ilaha Allah Muhammad Rasulullah Allah, and that is that Allah is the true prophet. That's Tawheed. That is you're declaring the oneness of God. Oneness. They're big on that. That's a big doctrine. Okay, this is why they don't like the divinity of Jesus or the Holy Spirit. We'll get into it next week, but this is the very essence of what. And Muhammad is his final prophet. Okay, so you'll see videos, and again, TikTok and all these things of like some 15-year-old American kid in front of a bunch of Arabs and black, and he's declaring the Shahada, and everyone's like, "Wow, we're overtaking the West." Okay, but this is an essence of the Shahada. So for us, it'd be like Romans 10:9. If you declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, believe that God raised him up from the dead, you shall be saved. That's what Paul says in Romans chapter 10, verse 9. It's like our version of that. Or if you're a Jew, it's the Shema in Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, Israel, the Lord of God, the Lord of God is one. It's their version of it. That's the Shahada, number 1. Number 2, the Salah. The Salah is prayer. And when you pray 5 times a day, and it's calculated throughout the 5 times, and when you do pray, you always obviously have a mat, and guess where you pray towards? Mecca. Okay, before, in Mecca, when people prayed, guess where they prayed towards? Jerusalem. back in 6th century, they prayed toward, and then all of a sudden when Muhammad came, he changed that, and because the angel gave him a visitation and says, no, you're not going to pray towards Jerusalem, you're going to pray towards the Kaaba. Okay? They cleanse the temple, and yeah. So the Salah, number 2. Number 3, Zakat, and that's charity. So Muslims are required to give 2.5% of their annual wealth to the needy. That's Zakat, that's number 3. Number 4, Sawm, and that is fasting. Okay, and Muslims will fast on the month of Ramadan. So when we think of Ramadan, like what is Ramadan? Is just a month. It's just like saying September. It's a 9th month. It's literally September to them. So when we say Ramadan, just think September, just a month. And in that month, every year on Ramadan, they do not eat as long as the sun is out. So they eat before the sun goes up. So they eat. So when the sun is up during Ramadan, no drinking anything, no tobacco, no smoking, no eating, no sexual relationship. As long as the sun is out on Ramadan, do not. Okay? And then last is Hajj. And Hajj is their pilgrimage to Mecca. Every Muslim is required to go to Mecca and perform Hajj. And when you go to Mecca, there's sights to see. The Prophet Muhammad did this. And last is where you walk around the Kaaba 7 times, because this is what Abraham and Ishmael did. So the 5 pillars of Islam. The Shahada, which is declaration of faith. The Salah, it's your 5 times of prayer. Zakat, your charity. The Psalm, which is your fasting on Ramadan. And last is Hajj, and it's your pilgrimage. Okay? I'm going to stop right there. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You said at one point that he went on the horse that had wings to Jerusalem, but I thought Jerusalem was never mentioned in the Quran.
It's in the Hadiths.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. In the Quran, again, it's like reading the Psalms. You're not. There's no. And John went and walked a mile and turned right and left, and then he had a cup of coffee. That's not the language. It's like reading the Psalms without those lines at the top. So I'm just being honest. You read it. Again, it's not. It's only like 1/4, 1/3 of the New Testament, so it's not long. The Quran, it's not long. But I'm just saying that it's the Hadiths that were written later that give us all these information. So Aisha. The Jews, these aren't mentioned in the Quran, okay. Right? So they're mentioned later on the Hadiths. So, and they're undeniable. Like you cannot read the Quran without the Hadiths. This doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Okay.
And I had just one other question. When you were talking about the Sikhs that they don't cut their beard and they have the turbans on there, is that what the Taliban is?
No. The Sikhs, there's a lot here. So that's what I'm saying. To a Western mind,
you'll see a lot of Sikhs out of Canada, and they own a lot of trucking companies. You'll see them trucking on the highway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, no kidding.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. Like there's, it's a thing here. Like Indians, like pouring in. And
I thought Sikhs were Indian. I thought that was Indians.
They are. Typically they are. But
okay.
So it's a new religion. I would say in the last 500 years. And it was in India, and the Indians or the Muslims and the Hindus always fought back and forth. And Guru Nanak, so there's 10 gurus in Sikhism. The first is Guru Nanak, and he said, "I'm tired of all this." And he had sayings and the traditions of don't cut your beard, don't cut your hair. So they do not cut their hair. So if they take that turban off, that's like Rapunzel. Like that is, it's long, right? And then they have the korban. It's a bracelet, and then if they could by law, they have the korban, which is a sword. They have a dagger. They carry, and it's by religion, and it's self defense. And then after Guru Nanak, there was 10 different gurus that happened after, and then the last was the Guru Granth Sahib, which is their holy book. So if you go to a temple here, there's a lot in Toronto. And you go into the sanctuary. It's kind of like a mosque where there's take your shoes off, guys on the right hand, girls on the left. Everyone puts their shoes out, and then up at the front is a Guru Granth Sahib, which is the book. And it's all like ancient and holy, and they have like a fan. They're like, yeah, but they are their ideology is an ideology of peace, 100%. So when you see them and they're all peaceful. And you see the Taliban, because they look the same. People get confused. So I think it was in Milwaukee, I believe, like 10 years ago. There was a shooting at a mandir, the Sikh temple, and the guy that shot them thought that they were terrorists or Muslims. And it was one of those, like to the east, it was like, oh, you Americans, one of those moments. Because it's true. It was like they're ideological. They're truly...
Yeah, they're totally mellow. They were friendly with the British in the wars in Afghanistan through the 19th century. They were actually friendly Westerners in the battle against Islamic extremists in Afghanistan. Sometimes they're hired as mercenaries, even though they're not very warring.
We are wrestling with time here, but in a nutshell, after Muhammad died, there was what is known as the Rashidun Caliphate, and this is the making of the Caliphate. Now, the Caliphate, if you're wondering what that word means, it just means kingdom. It just means empire. The Caliphate empire. And what happened was it was about the succession of Muhammad. When Muhammad died, he gave his leadership, his rule to Abu Bakr. And the Rashidun Caliphate has four caliphates or rulers. Abu Bakr, who's number one, Umar, number two, who got assassinated, Uthman, number three, he got assassinated, and here's the tricky one, Ali. Ali was his cousin, his younger cousin, and was his son-in-law because he married his daughter Fatima. Now what happened was that this is where the Sunni and Shiite divide, as far as it's all political, really. Like if you think of it theologically, it's really jurisprudence, it's really politics. Ali is the cousin, of Muhammad, and he is the fourth in the Rashidun Empire. Now, what happened was that when upon Muhammad's death, it's very controversial, but it's true. This is what happened: was that Ali, who's a cousin, and his wife Fatima that's Muhammad's daughter. And all of a sudden, Uthman and they come up to his house with soldiers, and they knock on his door because they want to be the new caliph. They want to be the new rulers. And all of a sudden, they didn't open up, so they kicked the door down, and Fatima, the door went on top of her. This is according to Shiites. Sunnis might disagree with this, but what happened was the door fell on her, and she was pregnant, and she had a miscarriage because of that. And because of the injury, she died later on that year. and they wanted to tell to Ali that they're the next caliphate. Okay, so the fourth was Ali. Okay, and this is the Rashidun Empire or caliphate. After that, Ali was assassinated. It was now the Umayyad Caliphate. Okay, the Umayyad Caliphate, that was 661 to 750. And this is where Islam spread. Okay, Islam spread, so it was called the Ridda Wars, which was in Arabia. So they pretty much wore their way into as far as Islam in Arabia. And from there, the Umayyad Caliphate, they spread up. Okay, now, if you ever wonder, so I'm reading the Confessions by St. Augustine right now. He was in Carthage. Carthage was northern Africa. Beautiful history of Christianity. Why is it all Islam? Morocco, Libya, you see all these countries, they're all Islam. It's because of the Umayyad Empire, they spread. Okay? And when they spread, it was through the Sharia law in the sense of submit to Allah. Oh, you don't submit to Allah? Pay jizya, tax. You don't pay jizya? We'll kill you. That's exactly what happened. And they spread. But this is the Battle of Yarmouk was under the Umayyad Empire. What happened was that Khalid, who was their general, defeated the Byzantine army. Again, there's a lot of history, but it's big as far as the way the world looks today. So at the time, the Roman Empire was the Byzantine, and they were known as Eastern Rome. And Persia was the Sassanid Empire, and they were Zoroastrian. And for 26 years to be specific, they went to war. The Byzantine Empire and the Sassanids. And because of that, all their wealth, all their energy was drained because of 26 years war. So you have this new religion that, I hate to say it, Islam is really a nation. It's really an empire. Okay? When they came up, they wiped out the Byzantines. And if you ever wonder, how did Byzantium go from all Christian, because that's what it was. So in 135, it was Hadrian that got rid of all the Jews because of Bar Kokhba and says, forget Israel, it's Palestine. Right? And it went from Christian, they're all Christian, and all of a sudden they're all Muslims by the time it's the 7th century. It's because of war. Okay? It was about Yarmouk, and they spread. And all of a sudden, this is the Umayyad Empire. After the Umayyad Empire, also under the Umayyad Empire, they took over Spain. So if you didn't know, Spain was Islamic from 711 for a good 500, 600 years. Okay, and it was the Battle of Guadala, which was in 711. Okay, so this is under the Umayyad Empire. So Islam really spread. Okay, after that was the Abbasid Empire, and this was the time during the Crusades. And I have to say this is because a lot of people in the West they throw the Crusades under the bus. Okay, they throw the Crusades under the bus. Remember, the Crusades started. It was the Council of Clermont in Rome, and it was Pope Urban II who had one of the most, in history, most written down speech of all of history, written down, and he pretty much communicated to the knights as far as what is going on. Think of what's going on. You're in Italy, modern day Italy, or you're in Rome, Jerusalem, which is all Christian. This new religion from Arabia called Islam or some prophet Muhammad. Everyone's Arab. What happened? That's us looking east. We look west. Spain, España, they're all Muslim too. What happened? And it was this growing concern, and this is why the Crusades happened. So in 1095, that's when he launched the Crusades. In 1099, that's when the first Crusade happened under Godfrey of Bouillon, who was the general. And the first crusade was successful, and they got rid of the Muslims in Jerusalem, and they cleansed it, and it became the Kingdom of Jerusalem under Godfrey of Bouillon. Now, if you hear Muslims speak, if you hear liberals speak, they start there. Okay, I'm just letting you. They start there. When you hear people talk about the crusade, oh, the Crusades were just an epic failure. The Christians, and they start there. Wait, pause. How did they get to that point? Why? Are we not going to mention 636, the Battle of Yarmouk that happened 500 years or 400 years before that? Or Spain being conquered in 711? No one talks about that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the narrative about the Crusades is meant for internal demoralization of the Christian West.
Oh,
it really is.
Thank you.
And it's like you can't understand history at all if you don't understand the Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire and the Byzantine Empire's collapse and the Pope, I can't remember which one it was, who betrayed the Byzantine Empire by not backing up the other Christian military.
I can't get over that till today. I'm sorry. Anyways.
What's that?
I can't get over that till today. Like I know the history behind that.
I can't. It's you start twitching when you hear that.
Like the Hagia Sophia.
They're just destroying their own heritage. I don't understand it.
Yeah, and again, you want to be able to call out your own fouls, because we're very biased people. So we'll defend Christian. No, I would say some of the Crusades were unsuccessful. The Fourth Crusade was a disaster. The First Crusade, no. They had a right to do that, right? How is Jerusalem all Islamic all of a sudden, right? So there's a reason for that, is what I'm trying to say, okay? And this happened during the Abbasid Empire, and then Muslims reconquered it under around the Third Crusade. This is Salah ad-Din, who is the Sultan of Egypt at the time. And again, this is, if you've seen the film The Kingdom of Heaven. So after Godfrey of Bouillon dies, a year later, he got hit in combat and he died a year later. And there was 3 brothers, and one of his brothers was far in France, I believe. And his other brother was Baldwin II. And what happened was, after Baldwin II, he became king of Jerusalem. Baldwin III. There's Baldwin IV. And he was known as the leper king. He had leprosy at a young age. So he was a knight that had full-on leprosy. He had a mask on. So he dies because of leprosy at 22, 23 years old. And he had a Baldwin V, and he was only a kid, and he had leprosy. And his mom, Isabella, killed him because of that, because she saw the way her brother lived. And they're all buried, even Baldwin V, in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I was there 2 years ago. I didn't realize they were there, I think, this year or last year. My heart was broken because of that. But anyways, we'll move on. Okay, now, that is the Abbasid Empire. After that was the Fatimid Empire, the Caliphate. I have to speed up because of time. And the last, and we know the last, is the Ottoman Empire, starting with Usman. So pretty much the Ottoman Empire was the last caliphate as far as Islam goes, and they were the ones that defeated Rome in 453. And the Battle of Constantinople. So if you went to the walls of Constantinople, it was a death sentence. There were 23 wars sieges that happened. Every single army got destroyed easily. So the fact that Mehmed II, who's 21 years old at the time, did it was a big accomplishment. But it was during the gunpowder age. So the Chinese monks invented the gunpowder in the 9th century. It developed into cannons by the time it was the Ottoman Empire, and that's why they were able to destroy the walls of Constantinople. But it was a fight. It was a real fight. So colonization, I'll say this. When you hear colonization, it's only applied to Western Europeans. That's it. So the Americans coming here, the French coming to Canada. In 519, Hernan Cortez, the Spaniards coming to Tenochtitlan, which is Mexico, defeating Montezuma II, and it was the Aztec Empire. So that's colonization right there. You bring Catholicism, you made them Catholic, you made them change their names, and everyone's speaking Spanish. That's colonization. America, that's colonization. No one ever applies colonization to if you're brown, if you're Muslim. Yeah. No one ever says that. No one ever says colonization happens if you're, say the Mongols. No one ever says that. How come whenever Muslims come, they always have to change their name, they have to dress like Muhammad, they have to wear what he wore, they wear the beard and all that, and they don't adhere to Western law. Look at Paris. Police tell the kids, as far as law, they don't care. They're going to follow Sharia law, the law of Islam, right? That's colonization. We don't think that way. We only think it applies to Westerners. That's what wokeism has done. Anti-Western solidarity. Okay? So, obviously, World War II, Ottomans are done. That's the last caliphate we've seen. And now we are living post-1950s. There was a lot of the colonized nations, say Northern Africa, the Middle East, say Iran, say Afghanistan. If you look in the 1950s, you look at Iran, beautiful place. Girls weren't wearing hijabs. Guys and girls can be on a bus together. They could walk together. Post 1915, something happened. Sharia law. That's what happened. All of a sudden, women have no rights. If you hear of when I say Sharia law, guess what we think of? We think of having your hands cut off, decapitation, things like that, right? Long story short, there are five schools of Sharia law, and the essence of Sharia law is how you interpret the Quran. So remember, where is Sharia law? Where is it? It's in here. It's in the Hadiths, but it's your interpretation of it, and it becomes your ultimate jurisprudence. Okay, so in essence, because I'm going to close here, the goal of Islam is dawah, and that is to spread the name of Islam. But remember, I want us to remember this. When it comes to Islam, they are a nation. I want you to think like that. They're a nation. Okay, so when a Muslim becomes French, do you think they're going to adhere to French values and culture? No. If a Muslim becomes English or the classy Brits, do you think they're going to adhere to British culture? No. They're going to follow their own. Why? Because they're a nation. They have their own religion, but they have their own set of laws. And what happens is that it's a process as far as the way Islam works.
Now, there is what is known as stealth jihad, where Muslims will come into a country and they will be the minority, but slowly build a following. And through this stealth jihad, they will slowly build and build and build and eventually become the majority. And when they're the majority, Sharia law comes in.
Okay, now, as far as how it's communicated, it is up to interpretation, but that is the end goal of Islam. So I would say Islam, their ultimate goal is to Islamicize the world. And for us as Christians, remember, the ultimate battle is Christianity and Islam, because we are not just the biggest religions, it's because the nature of these religions. Hinduism, they don't really go around. Like, Hinduism has been there longer than Christianity has, and they've just been sitting in India. Same thing with Buddhists. They've just been sitting in certain places of the world, but they don't go out and like things happen. It's just a reality. Christianity is not the case. Christians go and spread. There's missionaries, right? Same thing with Islam, but when it comes to Islam, we're a religion of proposition. We propose, hey, come to faith. You can consent if you can say no if you want, right? Islam is imposition. We impose it upon you. If you don't believe it, we're the majority. You got to pay taxes. If you don't pay taxes, guess what? This is where public executions happen. Okay, I'm not trying to put fear. This is just a reality, and this is the way the world has been for the last 1,400 years. Okay, so that is a history. And I had to skip over Sharia law because of time. But yeah, any questions?
No, thank you so much, Ruben. I got a lot of notes. I appreciate it.
So next week, guys, because we're not going to do communion, so we're going to end here, okay? Next week, we're going to do Christology and Islamic claims, so we're actually going to open the Quran, we're going to open the Bible, but I think it'll be good for you. And the reason why I think it'll be good for you is because I learned more about my faith when I learned more about other religions, okay? As far as like it solidifies, like, oh, that's what we believe. That's why we do this. And I think a lot of Christians are kind of naive towards these things as far as why people believe certain things, but it will help you solidify or like really ground you as far as what Christianity believes historically, and for you to open the Bible and to explain it. Because I'm telling you, Muslims are prepared to engage with Christians. They are prepared. I have been to debates where I've seen Christians just get embarrassed, to be honest. They're there to learn whatever it is and like think that they know what they're talking about and just get wiped off the floor by some like 20-year-old Muslim kid. And because they're prepared. And they're prepared to be on the offensive when it comes to Christianity as far as beliefs. Okay, now what's going on in the world? Yes, Islam is the fastest growing religion, but it's what I said, it's procreation. It's not through conversion there's actually a 25% turnover rate when it comes to young Muslims in the West. There is. And you know why that is? Is because of the rise of the internet. And it's these facts I've communicated to you guys. I never even said Islam is wrong or right. I just said it. And people are coming to these conclusions and be like, oh, wait, really? So next week we'll go into more theology or Christology. But I used to be a big proponent of that's how you win Muslims, and that's how you is through, you open the Bible and you go back and forth and all, which is, I'm all for it. But people are leaving Islam, you know why? Because of moral reasons, because of ethical reasons. They read the Quran and they say, wait, our prophet was married to a 6-year-old and slept with her at 9, and he was 54, and we all agree, we're all justifying this because it happened at that time. Yeah, pederasty was, I'm writing a book on these things of sexual practice in ancient antiquity. Yeah, it happened, but Christianity helped destroy that. A single man by the name of the Apostle Paul helped destroy. That's ethical, right? And people are seeing this, and people are saying, wait a moment, why'd you kill these Jewish kids? You cut their heads off in front of their wives, in front of their moms, and they didn't do anything. And your prophet approved of these things. And people are seeing, they're undeniable. Remember, they're undeniable. And these are the reasons why people are saying, hey, I don't want to support this prophet. I want to support this religion. And when they see these things, guess what? They look into the world and they be like, yeah, these Muslims why are there goat carcasses? And people are screaming, Allah Akbar. And people are getting scared. And guess who's defending them? The progressives are. But again, do we want to believe this? Do we want this to be our normality in society? And a lot of young people are saying no. On top of that, if you leave Islam, guess what? I'm dead. My friend Ramin, he's dead. My friend Wally, he's dead. Sorry, I was never a Muslim. I say that just for figure of speech. But if someone leaves Islam, then that's the death penalty. How is that religious freedom? If anyone knows psychology, if anyone knows the languages of the human heart, if I leave a specific religion, Islam, and I'm dead, guess what that implies? Fear. I can't think for myself. Anxiety. I'm unable to think on my own and say this is what I believe and this is what I don't believe. I have to believe it. If not, I get my head cut off or I'm dead. That's fear. And do you want a society based upon that? Young people are saying no. And there's something beautiful about Christianity when it spreads across the world because there's always freedom. And if you know sociology and history, economic freedom and religious freedoms are the way you get a society to be happy. You want people to be flourish. You want a nation to flourish. Have economic freedom and have religious freedom. That society will flourish. Okay, I will end, and it's so sad that this is the case. But when we think of Iran is typically it's Shia. So Sunni and Shiite, the Sunni Shiite divide, it's purely political, mainly political. There's certain beliefs that they differ on, but it's a Shiite. So Sunnis are about 85-90% of Islam. Shiites 10 to 15%, but majority of them live in Iran. And if you know Iran, that's Persia. And there's this monarch that was he's considered the great of greats. King Cyrus the Great, who this man, Herodotus, wrote about. And Alexander the Great desired to be like him. That's why he put his name the Great, is because it was King Cyrus the Great. And he was known for the Cyrus Cylinder. And the Cyrus Cylinder talks about religious freedom and it talks about human rights for the first time in world history. And this is where Thomas Jefferson got his ideas, and he was so fascinated with it. He has 2 books about King Cyrus before they even had the cylinder, which is unbelievable. And now, as time goes by, we see Iran or Persia, and it's the opposite of what King Cyrus would have ever thought of. Okay? And this is the nature of what Islam has done. Okay? So I'll end there. Okay, guys?